Hello and welcome to Blue Tinted Glasses, and it's time for the match preview. And this time around, it's a little bit of a break from the league, and it's on to the FA Cup. It's the third round, what January's famous for. And today, I'm joined by Luke from LCFC Down Under, who's going to be running the preview for us today. Hello, Luke. How's it going down under?
Mate, it's not too hot, but mate, I never thought I'd be so relieved to see an FA Cup game and have a break from the Premier League. It's kind of tragic, but here we are, mate. So moving on, and let's hope we can have a decent performance.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully it's not as hot as it is in America right now with their wildfires. I know that you shared some wildfires a little while back. But okay, let's move on to Leicester City versus QPR. And you tell me what to do and we can pilot it. So over to you.
Right. So QPR, very, very decent run of results, particularly if you want to look at, let's say, the more recent results. Win against Luton, who have promoted last season, they're back down. Win against Watford, who've been playing much better this season, and a draw against Norwich. I'm not really going to go into every single game, but for what it's worth, the record you can see for yourself, much, much improved. And here we go. You got your stats here on your right-hand side. Playing a lot more dominant with the possession under Martí Cifuentes. I'm convinced I've butchered that name, which we'll touch on later. But much, much, much better attractive brand of football, particularly that Spanish style. Like I said, we'll touch on that. But, mate, much, much improved compared to last season and where they were at the start of the season. And to be honest with you, I quite rate it, particularly trying that style of football in the Championship. What are your thoughts, quickly basing off these stats here?
No, absolutely. I think it's interesting that actually he was under a lot of pressure at the start of the season, Martí Cifuentes. And if you know this, but QPR were actually bottom, I think, after 2 or 3 months. But they stuck with the manager. It eventually turned around. Some of the injuries cleared up. And now they're, well, you can see here, now they're up to 13. So very solid mid-table. Given that they ended last season. It's funny, them and Sheffield Wednesday last year, you might remember, they were the teams that looked like they were relegated. They brought in new managers and they had great ends to the season. And so coming into this season, people were quite optimistic. But it's funny because they both started quite badly, but now they've actually recovered quite a lot. So I think that shows you that both Danny Roll and Martí Cifuentes are good managers. And I think it isn't a surprise that both those managers have actually already been linked with other jobs like the West Brom one and some other ones. So definitely doing a good job. But you can still see here it's kind of interesting. -5 goal difference, but up to 13. But that's probably because of their bad start.
Moving on, table here. This is the starting 11 of the last game against Luton. Now, I'm not going to go, I don't know about you, mate, but I'm not too familiar with every single player because I don't have all the time in the world to watch Championship football. One here, though, to definitely point out, though, is Ilias Chair, who we'll move on to in a second. They play a 4-2-3-1. They like to keep it on the ground. And, mate, Ilias Chair is one that we were linked with. Let's just touch on him now, mate. Ilias Chair, I don't know if what your thoughts were and if you were happy to sign him or not. I don't think he would have adapted to the Premier League, but he is a top shelf Championship player without a doubt. That center of ball gravity, he's really good on the ball. Very, very tricky to dribble around. Mate, I would have been happy to have him in the Championship. Premier League, bit of an asterisk for me, particularly with his age, and he hasn't really, if he was going to make it, it would have been by now, but top draw Championship player and definitely one to watch for. What are your thoughts on Ilias Chair? Would you have been happy to have him at Leicester?
Well, it's funny here. You can see he actually scored against us last season, you might remember. So, yeah, this little bit of a warning shot that this was our strongest team. This was in our Championship title run-ins. We were looking to go up and they came to the King Power and they beat us. Funny though, absolute smash and grab, just 2 shots on target and they scored both. We had 18 shots but couldn't score 74% possession. Chair, for me, didn't really want him. I do think he's a good player. I think you summed him up. I think he's, one of the better players in the Championship. But I think it says it a lot that, look at Ipswich. They've essentially signed the Championship All-Stars and they didn't sign Ilias Chair, but they did sign Sammy Schmodix instead. And Schmodix is actually older, but I think the better player. But for sure, I don't think he's someone that we should take for granted because he's proven his quality. I think it just comes down to it that, I don't think he would be able to do it in the Premier League. That's my opinion. Or he'd be at a team that struggles. So I think if you look at us, who have we got in similar positions? We were saying Mavididi for the actual left wing. And then if he plays in that sort of slightly more inside role, but we had Keane and Dewsbury Hall last season. This season, we've got Bilal El Kanu. So I think, again, both of those are... It's funny, actually, because Bilal's Moroccan as well, right? So younger and slightly better. But I don't want to take anything away from him. I think he is a good player. I am a little bit surprised that QPR have still got him. I think he could play for a team that's pushing for promotion in the Championship. But I think that's about his level.
And something to note here as well before we move on. Around this time is when people started to turn on Enzo for God knows reason why. If you remember when we lost this game, a lot of people were furious that we weren't creating enough chances, even though look at all the shots that we had. But at the time, people were saying we weren't clinical enough in the final third.
Well, only 5 on target, so they might have had a point. I mean, it was true. We were struggling at that point in time. But look, let's talk about the QPR manager then, Martí Cifuentes. You mentioned him a little bit. So why don't you tell us about how he plays?
Martí Cifuentes, I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Mate, he got Hammersby IF into the Europa Conference League as well before he got that's basically what got him the job at QPR. He is a Spanish-style manager, and he has come with the ambition to adapt it in that, really possession-based football and controlling the ball in the English system. And what better proving ground to start with in the Championship, just like Enzo. Cifuentes prefers a patient, compact passing game with the ball on the ground. Sounds very, very, very familiar. Likes to dominate possession, and he encourages QPR to play out from the back and dominate the ball. However, he also believes the adaptability is crucial for success and that coaches must be willing to change their plans and be pragmatic. I really, really like the sound of this on paper. When QPR struggled at right back, Cifuentes moved to centre back to the position and a player was successful.
Do you know who that player was?
No, I don't.
Never mind. Fair enough.
I've just lost it in the top of my head, mate. But basically what Constant was doing for Aston Villa. So, like, some people can do it, but what it shows is that he's willing and, like, basically you said that they struggled at the start of the season, QPR, and I'd love to have a QPR fan on, but I would argue that this style of football, if you don't have the players for it, can be very hard to adapt in the English style of football. And I think that, like, the fact that they've backed him and he's starting to drill it into the players shows a lot that you have to have confidence on the ball. So there's a reason why that he's come here, and I think that there's something to respect about that. But the biggest thing to take away from this is that he's also pragmatic. Like, a lot of this on paper sounds very similar to Enzo Maresca. But Enzo Maresca is known for not being pragmatic and not changing, and still even now at Chelsea, known for being very late with subs, of not making little to no subs at all. So the fact that he's pragmatic on top of an attractive brand of football, I think is very, very exciting if you're a QPR fan, and I respect it. What are your thoughts?
I agree. I was going to ask you how you think the game's going to go, because I guess this shows from last season in terms of him being pragmatic that even if he likes to have possession, he's more than happy to play, just play on the counter and try and hit you on the break. Like, it was noticeable actually that last year. I know he's actually now since moved to Bristol City, but it had Sinclair Armstrong, who was really quick. I think he scored with his first touch, didn't he, when he came off the bench for them to put them 2-0 up. So yeah, I mean, I wonder how they're going to play against us. I think it will be a bit of a similar game to this one, although I guess it will take us onto our own lineup. So firstly, do you think QPR are going to go strong given that they're mid-table, or do you think that they're still going to concentrate on the Championship?
So I was going to touch on this. So I do think they are going to go strong. I know that it's not the end of the season yet, but you would say if you were to look at the table now that they are technically on the beach. And also, like, we all know how volatile the Championship is, and that very well could change at the end of the season. But in my opinion, they've got kind of nothing to lose. But if you look at where they are at the table right now, they've got, I don't know when the next game is, but look, mate, I think they are going to go strong. They probably enjoy an FA Cup run. They've made it this far. Why not go strong? What are your thoughts?
I have no idea, to be honest with you. That's what I want to see, but they've definitely recovered quite well. You can see that. I mean, look, they're only 8 points off getting into the playoff positions, but that can be a lot of points to make up at this time in the season. But you never know. But I agree, it does look like already that they're too good to go down, but probably not good enough to get to the playoffs. So, as you say, that's when performances sometimes start dipping. But it's still January. Normally they start dipping by the time we get to March. So let's see what they do, and they might be active in the transfer window themselves. We don't know. We'll have to see what kind of happens. But yeah, look, I guess moving on then, we'll come to the transfers in a moment. So you've asked this question, will you see our reserve team maintain the same identity? So I guess you're expecting to see plenty of changes. So why don't you talk to me about what you think the lineup's going to be against QPR?
Okay, so the reason I asked that question is, like, if you remember, mate, like, do you remember when Enzo Maresca first played Liverpool? We thought we had a really good performance in the preseason, but we lost, but still we were very happy. You could see straight away what we're trying to do. We're starting to see more and more of this compact 4-4-2 out of possession, mid-block with Ruud van Nistelrooy. And that's basically why I asked the question, because if we're going to have a massive rotation of players, you still, even under Enzo, could see what we're trying to do. Granted that with the big changes of players, like if you think of the Birmingham game, for example, he kind of didn't have the players for it, but he was trying to do the exact same thing. So I want to see if he can adapt that with a massive rotation of players against with all due respect, lower quality opposition. So this starting 11 here, it's obviously going to be very hard to script, but in my opinion, this is going to be as closest to it as we're going to see. Starting of Stalacic at the back. Now, if he is our number one with Mads Hermansen currently unavailable, in my opinion, because of how much time he had off injured, there's no reason to rest him. So I say just keep playing him, because if Mads Hermansen is not sold, chances are he's going to be the number 2 goalkeeper from then onwards. And if we lose the game, it'll be a while until we see him. So for all purposes intended, I would play him. Without Faes, and if Vestergaard's still injured and Faes hasn't been featuring, and neither as a callie, the partnership has been Cody and Vestergaard. This is the opportunity for them two to work as a duo. Luke Thomas on the left. I know Christensen is back available, but again, I would expect him to take his place. So this would have been Thomas's game to play had Christensen not been injured. Mm-hmm. The only asterisk for me, Anil, is Chowdhury. I wouldn't be surprised if he got put in the double pivot position, but with no other right backs available, and I just think mentally he needs a break for his own mental health and performances. JJ just needs to have a rest, mate. There's no reason for him to play this. And this is an opportunity because, like we just will touch on soon, the January transfer, we don't have another right back. So this is Chowdhury's chance, in my opinion, to prove that he can take JJ's place. You know, judging of current.
What if Hamza's not actually at the club at this point in time? Because there's quite strong rumours linking him with Sheffield United and a loan move.
I don't think he's going to... Actually, you know, I can't say that because I've lost all faith in the board. But it would be silly, in my opinion, to have another loan with him. I would just make more sense just to move him on because it's pure profit, because he's a Leicester City product. But, hey, he might not be available. But I think at this late, I don't see it happening, because it would be incredibly stupid if we were to let Chowdhury go without having a replacement lined up ready to go. Because if JJ were to get injured, that is diabolic. Like, what are we going to do for right back? So, in my opinion, that's just, you know, makes no sense. But so does a lot of the decisions the board makes. Moving on to the double pivot, I think without a doubt it's going to be Skip, because he hasn't been featuring, and we need to get somewhat value out of that 25 million that we paid for him. Winks, though, I wouldn't be surprised if it's not Winks and if it was Chowdhury instead. But look, I'll put Winks in because of the time he had off injured briefly. I wouldn't surprise me to see him in. This is where it gets interesting for me. Alves. I think he needs a loan move, mate. I really do. And I think it should have been done before the season started. I think that was another silly decision, because he had a whole year off with his ACL and he needs all the experience he can get. He's never going to break through at 19 if he's, you know, coming on for 5 minutes here or there. So without a doubt, I expect him to be our 10. We have seen him basically only come on as a left winger in 5 or 10 minutes here and there, but he is a center attacking midfielder, and I would like to see him have that whole 90 minutes in that 10 position. McAteer, back training of the group, I would expect him to come in as well off the left wing. It's up for debate which wing you prefer to see him on, and Bobby Dekova-Reid on the right. That's most likely what I think we'll see, because Bobby Dekova-Reid has an assist on that side, and McAteer has been moved over to the left when he has played under Ruud van Nistelrooy before. So it makes most sense on paper for that to be your two wingers, and then Daka up front, give Vardy a rest. This is Daka's chance to prove himself and maybe get himself more of a sub appearance, but that's my starting 11, what I expect to see. What are your thoughts, and what would you change?
Well, it's an interesting one, because I've got a feeling that Ruud might actually go a bit stronger than you think he will. And I think he might do that just because with 5 losses in a row, it's extremely important to get some kind of morale into the team and a good performance. So I could see him in some places putting some other people in. I do think Will Alves will play. I wonder if he'll start or not. I think he probably should. You might see someone like Michael Golding make the bench as well. There has also been some rumours about a guy called Jeremy Mongo. He's only 15, but he's like the best academy prospect produced in years. And you might remember that Will Alves got a few minutes against Watford a few years ago. So I think he might be on the bench. Otherwise, I think it's pretty familiar. But yeah, I could, for example, see even Vardy starting. I could see either one of... I mean, it's interesting that you haven't got Buonanotte or El Khanous in here. I actually think one of those two probably will start. Like I said, I think he will want the win. I think the right-back position is interesting because if Hamza's not available, there are some rumours that there's another JJ in the academy that can also play right-back. So you might see another youth academy prospect tried there or someone else. Let's see. But I think, generally speaking, I could definitely see this being the lineup. I think it's quite believable, to be honest with you. And I don't think it's too bad. I think that would on paper, that probably should be too strong for QPR. But I mean, it depends. We still got to put in a good performance. And all I can say is the last time we went with the Skip Chowdhury double pivot, admittedly, it was against Newcastle, but we didn't look too good. But, your question was, would we see the same identity? And I think we will. And I think the reason for that is that, like, when you saw Luke Thomas come into the team on the weekend, he actually had a very good game, but I think he wasn't getting enough credit. Like, he was doing passing out of trouble. He was finding the ball down the line. There was even a bit near the end in the second half where he got taken off, where he was inverting into the central attacking midfield role, like JJ was doing and Christensen has been doing, and he played a pretty good pass. So I think they are clearly practicing patterns of play. I think there is a clear system with Ruud. I just don't think we have a good enough team right now, maybe to produce, what we want to. And maybe this comes on to your other point then. So it's got to be one of those things that everyone's obviously talking about. We're in now, it's January the 9th by the time we're going to be putting out this preview. And we haven't signed anyone right now. And if you look about what's happening in the rest of the club, Ipswich, who are one place above us, have signed Ben Godfrey on loan. He's a fullback, can play left back or right back, or he can actually play defensive midfield as well. And they're just about to sign Jaden Philogene, who was a player they were linked with in the summer, went back to Villa in the end. I think he's a really good winger. I'm not sure he can make an impact right now, but for example, I was a little disappointed we didn't sign a player like that, because I think he would have been great I'll be honest with you, I'd rather have signed someone like that than Skip, because he could have pushed both Fatau and Mavididi on either side, and give us a little bit more depth there. Then you've got Wolves, who signed a guy called Agbadu, I think his name is, from Ream. Good, I think very solid centre back. So look, that's like three. So basically, if you ask most people, they're sort of saying we could do with a centre back, a right back, and a winger. And if you look at it, that's actually all those signings have gone to clubs around us, and we haven't signed anyone. So what do you think is going on? Do you think we'll do any business, and what are the priority positions to get?
This is what's strange. So to begin with, right, I believe Skip was signed before Ndidi. So Ndidi really held on to the last minute before he signed the new deal. So you could make an argument like before, like, look, why are we spending 25 million in a central defensive midfielder when we had at the time, Ricardo, Winks, Samare, Ndidi. We didn't have Ndidi yet, really, but so you could make the argument that he could have been covered for Ndidi. But then again, when Cooper brought in Skip and played Ndidi as a 10, that just nullifies that argument right there. So what do I think's going on? I truly don't know, mate. We're hearing rumors of FFP breaches and new points deduction. We're probably going to find out in the next couple of weeks. It would still make no sense. Even if we have breached, right, we're still going to get the book thrown at us if we go down to the championship and with a transfer embargo waiting for us. So if we do go down and we don't sign any players, whoever leaves, right, we can't replace, and we're going to be forced to play a lot of youth, which is quite frightening, to be honest with you. So in my opinion, like, you could say we have one eye, signing players at maybe not too high level, just with half an eye in the championship. In my opinion, they need to go all out now and treat this like a summer transfer window. I know you won't get bang for buck, but you have to in case we do go down and have an embargo placed on us to have any chance of coming back up. That's my personal opinion. I'm not going to go too deep on this, mate, because I know you guys just covered it on the Fox's Den, which I recommend people watch if they haven't. But for what it's worth, what I will say is that I would have liked to have had some signings by now. I know that we signed 3 players last time we got relegated right towards the end of the window. But the reality is that we have an FA Cup game. So if you're going to have any kind of, let's say, beta of testing new players with that identity under Ruud van Nistelrooy, this would have been the game to do it where, should you make a mistake or two, it would not have been as, punishing, or the ramifications would not have been high. Because if we get eliminated from this, we're not really bothered, but if we are bothered, it will be a 6 loss and a bounce. That's something to note as well. That's what I think, mate. I don't know what you think, but it is frustrating. But maybe we're just throwing our toys at the pram too early. But it is frustrating, as you just mentioned, that players and teams around us, like in the relegation battle, are already making moves. So I am pretty frustrated, to be honest with you. But this is Leicester City, and this is nothing we're new to.
Well, I think you're right, and all the fans are calling out as well. Look, the reality is we've lost 5 games in a row, and we're in a relegation zone. So if ever there was a time to have signings lined up and ready to go, this was it. And I think expecting one signing sort of 9 days into the window, I don't think it's unfair, especially given that other clubs have done it. I still feel that regardless of if we've reached or not, we will bring some players in. Probably it'll be like 1 permanent and 1 loan. I can see something like that. But will it be enough? It doesn't feel like it, does it? Like, literally, if we've already got a worse squad than teams around us and those squads are strengthening, then and we have injuries, and those injuries aren't coming back between now and the end of the season, well, not in the case of Fatal and Ricardo, then just do the maths in your head. That doesn't sound like we're going to turn it around somehow. So that's a bit depressing. We'll have to see. But who knows? I will say that even though I've mentioned those players, I think those players that have been signed by the other clubs are pretty good. They're decent. I don't think I would be unhappy if I saw any of them turn up at the club. But at the same time, they might not necessarily be like killer signings, you know? So who knows? That's what it all depends. If we were to make one like absolutely ridiculous signing, all of a sudden you might be thinking, oh, hello, we've clearly signed the best player here. But I'm not convinced we either have or are going to do that. And then maybe, I guess, the last question you wanted to ask, like I said, if we do go down, you know, what is our team going to be looking like? I mean, I know that's something to think about. I mean, players that are missing here, you know, you got Alves, but you've also got Ben Nelson, who unfortunately is out for the season as well. You got some decent youngsters there. Tom Cannon could come back, but I don't know. Obviously, if we go down, it'll be big trouble for us.
It would be big trouble for us. You'll have Sutar when he's back available as well, as championship proven. Tom Cannon could have made the argument for him to even come back right now, but I believe he's past that threshold where we can bring him back. And I personally wouldn't bring him back unless he's going to be interchanging with Jamie Vardy over Daka. I just think it's better for his development to go out alone. I always had all the time the word for Cannon. I genuinely liked him, mate. I just don't think he was really suited the Enzo system, if you ask me. But yeah, mate, this is a very, very important question. If we do go down there, it's very subjective on who you would expect to stay and who you would expect to go. But I think this is as close to it as you can possibly get. Maybe that's, like I said, it's debatable. But for what it's worth, just also, if there's any QPR fans listening, I'm really sorry. I had a massive day at work today and I had a total brain fart. It was Jimmy Dunn from centre back to right back, where his forceful play and goal scoring helped the team. So for what it's worth, for early in the video, I'm sorry about that. But mate, I am hoping and optimistic about a win this game. I think it'd be really good for morale. How are you feeling about this game? Are you feeling confident, or are you just completely dejected now?
No, I am confident. I mean, even though we're bottom and I might sound dejected, I'm not as dejected, I think, as others. We've still got a chance to get out of it, but I do think we're going to find answers by the end of the month. That's the worry. It's in the league that we've got Palace and Fulham coming right up. I think we need to get 4 points out of those at minimum. And Palace, we need to get the 3. Now, if we were to get that, then all of a sudden, I still think we're going to remain competitive. But I think the fear is if at the end of January, we're now, instead of 2 points cut adrift, it's like 4 points, like more than one game, then it's going to start looking terminal, especially if the window's already gone. But let's cross that bridge when we get there. So thanks so much, Luke. Thanks for doing the preview. Stay tuned to Blue Tinted Glasses. We're going to do the team builder on Friday. The match this time around starts at 2 o'clock, believe it or not, on Saturday, but we'll be doing match day live and instant match reaction for that one. Hopefully we have a bit of a therapeutic performance. Maybe we see Will Alves get his first goal. Wouldn't that be nice? Let's hope we see it. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.